Today I am before you with Shakespeare's sonnet number 116. Sonnet number 116 does talk about the universal human emotion of love. Now, love has been talked about by many writers across the globe in their own respective ways. While some have tried to look at love through an ideal level or on an emotional level, right? Some have also talked about love on a physical level. Now, since love happens to be a feeling that nearly every one of us in our lives passes through, therefore, this very emotion has gripped the attention of many writers. And Shakespeare, too, he does talk about this emotion of love in this sonnet in question. Now, the love, as far as it is concerned, can love actually turn away, or can love diminish with the passage of time? Can anybody act as a deterrent against two people coming together or meeting, or culminating their relation in the form of love? So Shakespeare does try to provide an answer to this problem, to this trouble, right? So in his view, love is something which cannot be, let us say, undermined. Love is something which overrides every other problem, every other issue, or every other impediment, right? So love does not actually acknowledge any sort of hurdles that may come its way in one way or another, right? So various writers have talked about love. We have, for example, Robert Browning in the Victorian age, whom I do hold as a great love poet. And then we have writers like John Donne, whose love poetry has actually been really remarkable. Then, of course, we have in the Romantic age writers like Lord Byron, right? And then even in early Romantic age, we have people like Robert Burns and so on and so forth. So everywhere people have talked about, let us say, people have also talked about, and then in its highly creative form, that is, the writers have actually dealt with this universal emotion in their own respective ways, right? So it's like that what happens when you fall in love with someone, that is desperately, right? So is there anything which stops you at the time from marrying that person, right, or not? So these are the kind of questions that the poet is trying to answer in this sonnet. So, as the sonnet goes, the very first line is, "Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments." Let me not. So, it's like that the poet here, what he tries to say is that any two persons, right? Any true minded people, any two true minded persons, people, I mean, they cannot actually admit or accept that two people, that they cannot actually come together, they cannot meet, or their relationship, it cannot culminate in the form of marriage, right? So let me not to the marriage of true minds. True minds here, the way poet is trying to look at it, that let me not, he tries to do what here, he tries to say here that let me not declare this thing, that true minded people cannot marry, right? So what he understands here is through this sonnet that love is something which culminates in marriage. So he's trying to put forth that view here. Let me not to the marriage of true minds. Admit impediments that any two people who love each other passionately, desperately, they rise above all worldly or social problems. For them, love is something which is pure, right? And it is this purity of love which survives every kind of impediment, every kind of onslaught. So he's trying to say here that love as such which accepts impediments, which actually feels that love is something which can bend when there are certain problems. So he says that I do not call that love at all, right? So in his view, love is something which does not acknowledge any trouble, any problems. And then love is not love which alters when it alteration find. And then of course love is not something. Love, what do we understand by love? Love is not something which changes when it any change finds. So that change can be in the form of, for example, two people are in love, but then if the other person, it comes across any other person, that is one way of looking at it, who is maybe more wealthier, who is maybe from the same race, same creed, same class, right? So at the time, if that one lover leaves his that is former beloved or lover, so in that case Shakespeare says that that is not love, right? So that is why he says here, love is not love which alters when it alteration finds. So this alteration can be of many forms. Alteration here can actually be any sort of or different forms of circumstances, right? You may actually leave your beloved or lover simply because your family does not want it. You may simply leave your beloved or lover simply because, I mean, you do not happen to belong to the, let us say, same race or same class or same caste, right? That can also be the issue. And on the other hand, it's like for example, as we find in plays like Romeo and Juliet, where the lovers, they cannot meet, so that is why they think of elopement, right? But then that elopement is there, where which convinces, right, that love does not actually bend before any power. So that power which tries to suppress or oppress the lovers, so that power is actually completely pushed aside by Shakespeare here. So he's trying to say love is not which alters when it alteration finds. So we cannot term that love as love which changes when a change comes. So change may come because of societal circumstances, and change may come because of when one lover or beloved finds someone better than the present one, right? And then when alteration finds or bends with the remover to remove, or bends with the remover to remove, or there can be a remover. For example, there can be cases of honor killing, as we find in the case of India, right? So there, if the love, if for example there is someone, maybe a father who does not want that marriage to take place, or maybe the family, maybe the community, so there can be any sort of remover. So that remover is any sort of impediment which may occur there, especially because of certain people who do not want two lovers to unite with each other. So he says that or bends, or love which actually bends is actually that you bow, right? You bend to the circumstances, before the crushing authority, crushing power, maybe of society or maybe of parents or any other, or of any other sort, right? So love is not that bends when there is a remover, when there is a person who wants to remove that love. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark that looks on tempests and is never shaken. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark. Love is now compared with something which is fixed, Love is constant. Shakespeare, in this sonnet, he is of the view that love always remains fixed, right? It is fixed, it is constant, so it cannot actually alter, it cannot bend. Oh, it is like an ever fixed mark that looks on tempests and is never shaken. That it looks on tempests, it looks on tempest. Tempest can be of any other form, right? Tempest is, that is metaphorically here, tempest or circumstances of the most difficult kind, and it is under the weight of those circumstances that the souls of the lovers, they never get oppressed, suppressed, right? That it is like an ever fixed mark. It is like an ever fixed mark. It is like a rock actually, right? A rock which remains surged upon what? Surged upon even when there are these currents of water in the ocean, right? So even at that moment, the water or the fierce tide of waters does not have got that power to wash ashore or to wash off what? This rock, right? So this rock, it remains steadfast at its place and no currents of power can actually remove it. So it is an ever fixed mark that looks on tempest and is never shaken, that it is never shaken. True love does not actually budge from its true course. That is why it is said in Shakespeare that the course of true love did never run smooth. And here, when we are saying that it is the star to every wandering walk, it is the star. I mean, it is like a pole star, right? The pole star is someone which is the brightest in the sky and it remains fixed, right? And it is by looking at these stars then that the ships in the ocean, they find their direction. And similarly here, when we are comparing love to an ever fixed mark or to a pole star, so it means that nothing can actually remove this true love, right? So when we are bringing out this concept, so there is this concept of fixity and fluidity, right? So mind you, Shakespeare here is trying to say that fluidity is something which true love never acknowledges or never accepts. For it, it is fixity of love, which is more important than the fluidity. Fluidity is change when it comes because of any agent. That agent can be of any sort, as I told you earlier. But here, what he's trying to say is that love, it remains static, it is always fixed, right? It is like a star, like pole star, as I told you. So it is the star to every wandering bark whose worth is unknown, although his height be taken. It is the star. It is like a star, right? Like a star to every wandering bark. Every wandering bark. Now, the ships actually which sail in the ocean. So these ships, as I told you, they get to know about their direction through what? Through actually by looking at this star in the sky, they realize towards which direction they are going. So for them it becomes like a guiding star. So it is the star to every wandering bark, every ship actually which has maybe lost its way in the waters and is looking for some direction or for something to show the ship its path. So see here, whose worth is unknown. That although the worth of what? This star is unknown, but then it is this star which acts as a guiding agent to the ships which are lost in the storm. Although his height be taken. Now, mind you, during the Renaissance times, it was we were not that much, let us say, developed. We were not that much forward in scientific inventions, or let us say in this navigational knowledge, right? So at that time, these were the stars which would become, or this especially this pole star, which would become what we call it as the guiding source for the ships, right? So at the same time, it was at this time that what the stars were made of, even those discoveries, they had not been undertaken. But then, of course, the height of the stars, it was something which was not completely known though, but then something which was partially known to the, that is especially the sailors, right? So somewhere here, what the poet is trying to say is that love is like a pole star. It always provides that direction to to the wandering bark, or so on, and so forth. So love is not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks within this his bending sickle's compass come. Love is not time's fool. Love is not time's fool. What does it mean is that love is not the gesture of time. That time is something which may cause you what? Physical uh, injury, let us call physical destruction, right? So, but then love is not something which can be made a gesture, which can be made a fool by time. We know that the clocks are ticking, right? Time is passing, and then we are advancing in years. But then it does not remain the case with love. You might be reminded at this time of John Keats' that famous poem that you have read, that was Ode on a Grecian Hour. There, the poet talks about again the lovers whose images are carved actually on the surface of the urn. And mind you, what he says there, that there is a lover and the lovers is trying to kiss his beloved there, right? Now the lover there, he cannot kiss his beloved, but then his love for his beloved, it will never cool down. The love of the beloved there, it will always remain fixed, right? So similarly here the poet is saying that the love, it always remains constant. He's of this view here, although it is a sonnet, of course, and he's talking on a highly romantic ideal level, but then of course it is something which may not find what we call it that much a meaning with those who may have suffered from the I mean, with people who uh, let us say jilted them in one way or another, right? So, and again the example of John Keats is before us, the way he had been jilted by his let us say beloved, especially because he had become afflicted with that disease, tuberculosis, and at the same time he was becoming poor, right? So here the thing is that love is not time's fool. So Shakespeare is making us understand that that was not love then. If the beloved actually left the, let us say, lover, or vice versa, that was not love. That was simply something which you may term in this common understanding or common parlance as something which we say attraction or so on. Then friends, that love is not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickle's compass come. Love is not time's fool, that is, time cannot do any harm to love if it is true. Though rosy lips and cheeks, we know this, that I mean, we will not be as young as of course we will not be as young in our old age as we are today, right? And then our for example, the lips of the beloveds, for example, they will not be uh, pinkish, they will not be rosy, and even the cheeks will not be, let us say, rosy. So what he's trying to say here is that rosy lips and cheeks, the beauty of the beloveds, it is something which is of course transitory. One cannot remain beautiful throughout, one cannot remain young throughout her or his life. It is bound, I mean, this old age is bound to come. So of course we can delay what we call it old age by the application of certain chemicals, certain creams, fair and lovely, and so on, but then we cannot actually stop it, right? Old age can be delayed for by 10 years or so, but it cannot be stopped, right? But then the poet is saying here, Shakespeare is trying to say that love as such cannot be actually no sickle of the time. Time is actually presented here like what? As if it is a destroyer and it destroys everything, right? Time, right? Why? Because we come to that inevitable moment when we die, when we leave this world. But time here cannot do any injury to love. That is why we remember many love stories, right? Love stories which we find in, let us say, whether in Indian context, be it Fir Rancha, right? And then be it Mirza Sahiba, right? Or Laila Majnu, and so on and so forth. Or if you go to West, there as well, we have these immortal stories which have been immortal, made immortal, especially by a Shakespeare, like Romeo and Juliet, and so on, right, friends? So it's like that love alters not with his brief hours, within his bending sickles compass come. Bending sickles compass. The way love has been presented here, that physical beauty, it comes to an end when the time lifts its sickle, right? It lifts its sickle and it reaps, right? It reaps the harvest, right? So here, time cannot do any harm to, what I'm trying to say here, to true love, right? So that sickle, which is a symbol of reaping here, or let us say a symbol of destruction here. So time cannot destroy true love, right? Although, as I told you, that is physical beauty, it may come to an end. It does come to an end. Love alters not with his brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. Right? Love alters not. Love does not change. Uh, even with what? With his brief hours and weeks. That is, as the hours pass, as the weeks pass, and the days, months, and years they pass, love does not change. It remains fixed, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. That love remains there even to the edge of doom. Edge of doom is actually, that is when there is the, where is this, the day of the judgment. The day of the judgment is when everything would come to an end, and then it is said that the world would actually begin in a new way. So that edge of doom is, that is, that the day of judgment, right? The judgment day, as it is called in Christianity. Then so it will remain up to that time as well. It will never die. If this be error and upon me proved, I never writ nor no man ever loved. So what the poet is trying to say here is that if this be error and upon me proved, now he's throwing a challenge to the readers here. If this be error, that if I'm trying, if what I'm saying here, it is error, that if it is an error, if you can prove that, upon me proved, and upon me proved, that if you can prove that whatever I have spoken here is not true, that it is an error, then I never write. Then I would understand that, or what I will do is I will never write anything, or I will understand that I have never written anything, nor no man ever loved, or perhaps no man on earth ever loved. So, what the poet is trying to say in this concluding section of the poem is that love as such, I mean, whatever way I have talked about love here, it is that love actually, it is in that way that love operates, right? And if love does not operate in that way, and if it is proved wrong upon me, then either I will never write, or the other person who is trying to say that, it means that that person has never really fallen in love, and what we call it, true love, right? So the poem as such, of course, as I told you in the beginning, it brings before us the a feeling of love, and then what is it that love really embodies, right? What is it that true love really stands for, and why true love must not actually stoop or bend before any sort of adverse circumstances. So love is, in the view of Shakespeare in this sonnet, uh, and a sort of idea which is platonic, which is pure, and which finds its culmination in the form of ultimate consummation in the form of marriage. So thank you very much.